Well, when you think of mutual insurance, it goes all the way back to when Ben Franklin started it in Philadelphia.
Well, a mutual insurance company is different than private companies in that we don't have shareholders or stockholders.
Basically, the policyholders own the company, and us as employees are just here to service our policyholders.
It's really those policyholders working together to provide cost-effective insurance for their neighbors, you might say. So that's how North Star was formed as a mutual and still is today.
My name is Al Anderson, or Alvin Anderson. I first started working for North Star in June of 1966, but MAFMIC, as we call it now, Minnesota Association of Farm Mutual Insurance Companies, wanted a crop hail insurance company. So they made a resolution to begin North Star back in 1920.
Under the direction of A.D. Stewart, North Star was originally formed to write crop hail, but that was discontinued in 1926 in favor of writing insurance on wind and hail for farm outbuildings and dwellings.
Served as an insurance company for the rural farmers, basically, to start with. For the first many years of its existence, that's all it did, is wrote farm business.
Well, A.D. Stewart died, I think, in either 25 or 26, and Anton Anderson, A.E. Anderson, was significant in the company at that time because he was the first president of North Star Insurance Company. So the board of directors talked him into running the company, but his condition was that he could move it to Cottonwood. Well, in the 1940s, Anton was setting things up to have one of his sons run North Star Mutual and Norwegian Mutual, and another son to run what was then called the Mutual Creamery Insurance Company. And Broer was the one that he chose to run North Star and Norwegian Mutual.
A.E. Anderson passed away in 1950, and his son W.E. Broer Anderson took over as president. At that time, a new building was constructed in downtown Cottonwood and served as the headquarters of North Star, the Creamery Mutuals, and Norwegian Mutual until 1968. At that time, a new building was constructed on its present location, and it's since been added on to 3 different times. So we currently have just over 100,000 square feet of office space.
Audrey Hostetler called and asked if she could come up and visit because she worked for North Star many years ago, and she was about in her early 90s at that time. And we gave them a tour around the building, and it was just, pretty amazing to them because when Ardith had started working, I think in 1931 or 2, she was one of only 3 employees, I think, of the company. And they related some of the stories of what they did. I think the girls, as they called them in those days, would take turns cleaning the office on Saturdays. So it was quite a change for them to see, and I think quite interesting, and we were glad that they could stop in.
Broer passed away in 1973, and Cliff Hansen took over at that time.
Cliff and I were sitting in a car on a rainy day in November out in front of the Cottonwood School, and he was explaining how daunting this thing was, how he didn't know if he was going to be ready for it, but he was.
Cliff was a great leader, great mentor for many of us, almost 60 years with the company. Started while he was still in high school back in 1953. And other than a brief stint in the service, spent his whole career at North Star.
Cliff was kind of a bigger-than-life person. And he was just such a big personality here, and he was very involved in the town.
And then he was Mr. MAFMIC and Mr. NAMIC.
Yeah.
Cliff had a lot to do with developing the culture of North Star.
Yeah.
And very intense. He just was never satisfied with things being good enough, always wanted to make things better.
Just a great, interested in people, good to visit with. Actually, a great speaker. a magnetic speaker, a good presenter. Very much enjoyed spring agents meetings and visiting with agents. Just a great leader and a better person, and was really instrumental in building the company.
My name is Terry Tim. I started with Northstar in 1974. Spring agent meetings are the annual meetings we have in the spring, starting in March, where we go out to meetings in all of our states and update agents on program changes, rate changes, other changes taking place at Northstar. Much of it was the culture that was being developed by Cliff Hansen at that time as president, with a culture of getting to know our agents and relating to the agents and having them feel that they were part of the company and knowing us well. And it still exists today. I think it's a big part of our success. You need to have the financial success to keep a company going, but you also need to build a relationship so agents want to do business with you. They have a lot of options. I don't think we ever tried to impress agents when we were out there. We poked a lot of fun at each other, but I think it made the relationship better that they didn't think of us as these company execs coming out here trying to tell them how to do business. We just updated on our programs and what we were doing, and I think we made the meetings pretty fun, and I think they're probably still carrying that on today.
My name is Darlene Dernberger. I first started at Northstar in 1972. When I started, of course, everything was done manually by hand, and we did not have computers. Our business came in to us by paper applications. Everything had to be typed. Our policies were physically typed on a typewriter, corrected by hand, by human eyes, and the underwriting was all hands-on. You had underwrote from the paper applications. The rating was manual. So more time-consuming, of course, than the processes are now.
When I first started many years ago, computers weren't really involved that much. We had an entire department whose job was to find files and file papers in paper files, and we were adding a linear foot of paper to our files every day for years. Over time, of course, computers become a bigger and bigger part of the business. We have actually a pretty good-sized programming staff here, write a lot of our own programs. Once we got past year 2000, then we turned our attention to automating some of our lines and adding quoting programs and the imaging of files. And again, that was when we really made some serious advancements with our technology. It's very unusual for a company our size to be in a town this small. Now it is our home and our history. We get good people. We don't have to teach them how to work hard and be nice. We have to teach them insurance, and that's still the case. We get a lot of long-term career people, and they are good people, work hard, service-oriented, and once they learn the business of insurance, we've been successful.
I mean, Northstar is a super regional company, really, which all of our peers would be companies that are located in big cities or, fairly large cities, so we're very unusual from that standpoint.
Helped us relate to the agents many times, though, because we write in a lot of small towns. We still write in a lot of business in towns that are too small for other companies to think they would. We write farm business.
And we had the advantage of hiring underwriters who grew up on farms and understood farm the terminology, and where a lot of these other companies, in a big city, they try to write farm, and the people that are underwriting have never been on a farm or don't understand what they're dealing with. So that was a big plus too.
Joe and I grew up on farms about 3 miles apart, but we didn't have major operations, let's put it that way. Farming has changed completely, obviously, since we were involved with all the mechanization and just the size of the operations and automation. And
your biggest losses now are not houses that burn, they're farm buildings full of machinery.
Yeah, in fact, our largest loss in history happened just last year, 2.6 million, and that was a machine shed full of equipment that burned.
The relationship with the mutuals, the township mutuals, was also a huge asset to us in agency development.
That's made us the largest farm writer in Minnesota, probably by quite a ways.
Yeah, quite a
because especially since we only write half of the policy, and we'd write more premium in farm business than anyone else in the country, and we are pretty high up in the standings in most of the other states we write too, as far as
farm market share.
Farm market share.
North Star, being located in a small town, does have considerable family connections. Probably the primary one is the Anderson family. When the company was moved to Cottonwood, it was under the direction of A.E. Anderson. And upon his death, his son, Bror Anderson, took over. And as recently as the 2000s, we still had Andersons involved in the operation. Harry Anderson headed up underwriting. Al Anderson headed up claims. The gene pool is pretty shallow in Cottonwood, so we have lots of employees who have spouses, children, or other relatives working at the company.
Both my grandparents have worked here or did work here, Grandpa Dahl and Grandma Dahl.
My mom, Gladys Helly, actually was an employee for North Star for almost 25 years.
My grandma, Alice Norland, was one of the first employees here.
A.E. Anderson was my grandfather.
And then my mother had worked here back in the days when they had the typewriting pool.
My sister-in-law, Darla Morkin, is an underwriter in farm. She's been here a long time. Her daughter, Andrea.
My uncle John also worked here in claims.
A first cousin, Craig, that works here currently.
My son, Andy.
My brother Derek worked in loss control.
My son worked, I forget this. My son is an adjuster for North Star, and my son-in-law is a field rep adjuster for North Star too.
Well, I have 3 family members here, actually 4 family members. And it doesn't seem odd to me, it just seems that's the way it is.
I always say I came alone when I came here. So we have 270 employees, roughly, right now, and there's lots of family connections, but even if you come and you're not connected to someone, I think sooner than later you feel like you're connected.
The thing that I've enjoyed about North Star all these years, and I enjoyed every year of working here, is that the people do work together. I think more than at most companies, people are working here to accomplish a goal, not to put a feather in their own cap. And that, I think, has been the reason for a lot of the success, because of the collaborative nature of the people that work here. Not a lot of companies survive 100 years and are being as successful as North Star is right now, so that's gratifying.
A couple of different thoughts. One is, 100 years is a long time, but then I think I worked here 40 years. 40 out of 100 is a pretty good share of that. And I'm not alone. We have, Jeff has been here more than 40 years now, and we have a lot of employees that have worked here that long or will work here that long.
What it means to me and what it shows me is that North Star is a very stable company, and as far as an employer, you can count on having a job for a long time and a rewarding career.
Well, I think anytime anything turns 100, it's a big milestone. It just speaks volumes to the fact that we're turning 100, we're still growing, we're strong, we're continuing to add to our workforce. and be a real strong contributing member of Southwest Minnesota and beyond now.
North Star being 100 years old is a great achievement. There isn't a lot of companies that can claim that. It goes back to the service that they've been able to provide, and people and relationships matter when it comes to insurance. And North Star's done a great job of providing that over the years, otherwise they wouldn't still be here.
Well, reaching 100 years is a major milestone, and many businesses do not make it that far, so it's really an honor and a testament to all who have come before, and all the people, the employees, the agents that have supported us, all working together to make it happen. Very, very proud of our legacy and our growth, especially accomplishing it here in a small southwest Minnesota town. And again, credit goes to our past leadership and all our staff. We have a great group of people that keep us moving forward, and I'm optimistic and look forward to our second 100 years.